The roar of finely tuned motors filled the air, a symphony of machinery and magic walking in unison. The military transport craft was a sight to behold. This magnificent vessel was a new iteration of a legendary Skylark warships, designed specifically for swift reconnaissance and rapid deployment. The Skylark floated majestically in the sky, its slick hull a blend of reinforced steel and enchanted wood, glowing faintly with the power of aconite, the glowing blood of modern economy. Skylark combined the aerodynamic lines of a naval vessel with the intricacies of ancient magical runes, every inch a testament to the mastery of both science and sorcery. The hull toppered elegantly at both the bow and stern, aiding in maneuverability, exuding an aura of power and grace. At the heart of a Skylark was the Arcanite reactor, albeit a smaller version compared to its larger counterpart. The central reactor emitted a soft, luminescent blue light, powering all the vessel's systems with an otherworldly hum. Wing-like fins extended from the side, assisting with stabilization and steering, and thrusters along with propellers maintained lift and directorial movement, giving the Skylark an appearance akin to a floating bird of prey. Banners and flags bearing the insignia of the Iron Dominion fluttered from the masts and the sides of a Skylark, signifying allegiance and instilling pride in the troops. The insignia was a striking symbol of power and unity. At its center, a stylized iron fist, rendered in bold, angular lines, clutched a pulsing arcanite crystal, symbolizing the Dominion's unyielding control over magical resources. Sharp, symmetrical rays emanated from behind the fist, resembling both sunbursts and gear teeth, the intricate runic etchings hinting at arcane knowledge. Encircling the central image was a ring of interlocking corks, each bearing different alchemical and magical symbols, representing the harmonious unity of Dominion's various factions and disciplines. Visible steam emanated from the propulsion systems, and occasional flares of magical energy from the Arcanite reactor gave the vessel a dynamic, almost living appearance. The interplay of the billowing flags with their commanding insignia and the pulsing energy of a Skylark created a spectacle that was particularly striking against the fading light, a testament to the might and technological prowess of the Iron Dominion. Aboard this impressive craft were 20 cadets and their supervisor, Johan, a seasoned military instructor. Clad in standard-issue uniforms, the cadets wore attire designed for both protection and utility. Their uniforms were made from durable, reinforced fabric woven with a minor protective runes, shielding them from environmental hazards and magical attacks. The deep anthracite black fabric was accented with silver, and the Iron Dominion's insignia was proudly displayed on their chests. Each cadet wore a utility belt equipped with essential tools, and their sturdy boots were designed for both urban and rugged terrains. A sharp chime echoed through Skylark's interior, signaling their imminent descent. The cadets stirred, a mixture of anticipation and nervousness rippling through their ranks. As the vessel pierced the gossamer veil of clouds, the boundary between the mundane skies and the realm below dissolved. Gasps of awe escaped from several cadets, and the forbidden expanse revealed itself, unfurling beneath them in breathtaking splendor. A verdant paradise stretched as far as the eye could see, its beauty so magnificent it seemed to defy reality itself. The forbidden expanse stretched endlessly, a siren's canvas painted with impossible hues and breath-catching vistas. This realm of beguiling peril stood in stark defiance of the Iron Dominion's regimented world, a wild and untamed beauty that whispered promises and threats in equal measure. At first glance, paradise seemed to bloom beneath them. Lush meadows rippled like oceans of emerald silk. Forests reached skyward with leaves that shimmered like starlight, and crystalline lakes mirrored a sky too perfect to be real. Yet, as eyes lingered, this illusion frayed at its edges. Meadows transformed with each blink, trees whispered in voices just beyond hearing, and those mirror lakes reflected worlds that could not be. The very air shimmered with lantern magic, mirages dancing at the corner of vision. Beauty twisted into terror and back again in the space of heartbeat. The landscape a chameleon of perception. Here, in the heart of the expanse, reality itself was a fickle thing, as changeable as the winds that carried their skylark over this land of beautiful nightmares. This was their first time venturing into the expanse, and the charged air inside the skylark was ripe with a mixture of trepidation and excitement. The cadets couldn't help but be mesmerized by the beauty below, even as they steeled themselves for the perils that surely awaited them. Kyle Karizin leaned against the cool metal frame of the skylark's massive panoramic view window, his forehead nearly touching the reinforced glass. The window stretched from the floor to ceiling, curving slightly to offer an expansive vista of the world outside. Faint runes, etched into its surface, pulsed with a soft blue light, a testament to the magical protections woven into the very fabric of the craft. Kyle's pale green eyes wide with wonder and apprehension. The lean, sickly-looking youth seemed out of place among his more robust peers. His dark brown hair, unruly and often tangled, fell across his forehead, occasionally obscuring his view of a breathtaking expanse beyond. The very air of the expanse pulsed with a latent power, hinting at the anomaly of its existence. Kyle's pale skin, marked with a few scars from previous skirmishes and rough training, seemed even more pallid in the eternal light of the skylark's interior. His slender frame tensed as he took in the view below. It was beautiful, unbelievably so, with lush forests and crystalline lakes stretching to the horizon. Yet something felt off. It was hard to pinpoint why, almost impossible to spot anything unusual in this verdant paradise. But an unsettling feeling crept over Kyle, a sense that something was fundamentally wrong with the place. The landscape's perfection seemed uncanny, as if it were a painting where the artist had been too meticulous, too precise. As Kyle gazed upon the expanse, a growing sense of unease settled into his stomach. The vibrant colors, the impossibly perfect forms of vegetation, the two still waters of distant lakes, all of it whispered of a world not meant for human eyes. Kyle felt acutely out of place, a foreign entity in a realm that followed its own inscrutable logic. This wasn't just a wild, untamed part of their world. It was something else entirely. The expanse seemed to breathe with its own life, existing in a paradigm utterly alien to human comprehension. As this realization washed over him, Kyle felt a complex mix of emotions, awe with their otherworldly beauty, fear of its unknown nature, and a profound sense of his own alienness. Here, humans were not masters or conquerors, but strangers in a strange land, fumbling to understand a reality that wasn't meant for them. The expanse was not their home, and perhaps it never could be. The Skylark continued its descent toward one of the Iron Dominion's remote outposts on the outer edge of the expanse. As they neared the base, which was little more than a collection of fortified structures surrounded by high fencing, the tension among the cadets grew palpable. Once the Skylark touched down, the arcane runes along its hull dimming as the engines were powered down. Johann, ever the stern presence, began to organize them into formation. His eyes, hardened by years of service, swept over the group.
"Welcome to the Forbidden Expanse,"
Johann intoned, his voice carrying an edge of gravity. The middle-aged man's weathered face bore the marks of countless expeditions, a network of fine scars etching a map of past encounters across his skin. His blonde hair, once vibrant, had faded to a dull straw color, cropped short in military fashion. Johann's frame was wiry and sinewy, honed by years of survival rather than sculpted by training. As he spoke, his fingers twitched unconsciously, yearning for the comfort of a cigarette.
This place is nothing like the orderly world you've known. Stay vigilant, stay together, and follow my orders. This hellhole only respects raw, unyielding power.
His voice carried the weight of experience, tinged with hint of weariness that spoke of a man who had seen too much, done too much, and was perhaps past caring. The cadets disembarked, their boots crunching against the gravelly ground. Despite being particularly well trained, they couldn't help but feel a shiver of unease. The initial moments in the expanse were overwhelming. The air was thick, almost viscous, charged with raw magic that pricked at their senses. The vibrant energy was both intoxicating and unsettling. At the core of every mage was their seed, a reservoir of magical potential, the heart of their prowess laying within their souls. This seed varied in shapes, strength, and sizes, influencing a mage's ability to harness and channel the magic. For some it was a powerful wellspring, while for others it barely flickered with life. Kyle felt it more keenly than most. His weak seed throbbed faintly in response to the environment, vibrating with an erratic pulse as it strained to absorb and adapt to the chaotic energies permeating the expanse. It was unlike anything he had ever encountered. The expanse was notorious for its corruptive influence. The very essence of a land seemed to sip into one's soul, probing for weakness, seeking to twist the fundamental nature of those who dared to tread its path. The cadets could feel the pressure mounting, a constant, invasive force that gnawed at their resolve and integrity. It whispered insidious temptations and doubts, attempting to erode their sense of self. Despite the protective runes woven into their uniforms, designed to shield them from such insidious forces, the cadets felt the oppressive weight of the expanse bearing down on them. Every breath felt heavy, laced with the raw power that danced in the air. Their seats pulsed in response, resonating with the ambient magic, each cadet acutely aware of the mounting danger that propped at their very cores. Instinctively, some of the cadets began to manifest the physical appearance of their seats. This was a subconscious reaction to the perceived threat. Spectral environments unfurled around them, each cadet enveloped by the unique world inside each mage's heart. One cadet projected a fiery inferno, where flames danced and crackled menacingly. Another's seed manifested as a serene forest, a fennel mist winding through ancient, towering trees. A third cadet was surrounded by crystalline formations, sparkling shards of light hovering protectively. It was as if they were unconsciously preparing for a fight, their seeds reacting to the hostile environment by bristling with urgency. The sight of these spectral worlds amidst the gloom of the expanse was both mesmerizing and eerie. Kyle's own seed, however, was a stark contrast. Its manifestation was faint and mostly empty, a barren twilight landscape dotted with a few flickering stars. The emptiness was palpable, a visual representation of his perceived inadequacy. The sparse matter around him struggled to hold form, its faint glow waning and waxing fitfully. barely holding back the encroaching darkness of the expanse. Johann noticed the instinctive manifestations and let out a derisive chuckle.
Greenhorns.
He muttered under his breath, shaking his head. But then, with a more serious tone, he addressed them.
It's alright to feel danger here. The expanse has that effect on first-timers. Your seeds are reacting to the raw magic in the air, trying to protect you. Stay calm, and you'll learn to control it.
Kyle clenched his fists, grounding himself as his seed wavered, struggling to maintain its integrity amidst the onslaught. He glanced at his fellow cadets, seeing the same strain etched across their faces. They were squad bound by duty and camaraderie, but here, in the heart of the expanse, each of them was alone in their battle against the corruption that sought to claim them. As they made their way into the base, the cadets began to acclimate to their surroundings, feeling the weight of the mission ahead settle more heavily upon their shoulders. They were sent to perform reconnaissance and map the locations of a Nexylite deposits, a mineral of immense potential and peril. Found only in the Forbidden Expanse, Nexylite was extremely rare and highly coveted. Its properties promised significant advances in magic tech, but made it exceptionally dangerous to mine due to its highly reactive nature. Their team was supplied with a specialized device, carried by Johann, designed to analyze the density of Nexylite deposits. Their task was to find and accurately mark the specified volume of deposits on a map for the future mining operations. Their gene, however, known for his extreme greed, had set an unreasonably high quota that loomed as a grave reminder and a source of constant worry. The cadets knew the risks were immense. The expanse itself was hazardous, but the rare mineral, its sheer quantities, and high expectations added an additional layer of complexity and danger to the mission. Johann led them through the fortified gates into the encampment, a sense of purpose driving his every step. The base was a stark contrast to the wild landscape outside. It was functional, designed for efficiency and defense, with watchtowers, barracks, and a central command post. The moment they entered the camp, their skylark, the only saving straw, departed. It is dangerous to expose magitech devices, even the most protected ones, to the expanse for too long. Chaotic magic energies resonate with fine-tuned equipment, causing glitches in machinery and various malfunctions, often dangerous and leading to casualties. From now on, cadets and their instructor were cut off from the outer world. As they settled in, the tension from their seed's manifestations began to dissipate, replaced by the usual camaraderie and jostling. It didn't take long for some cadets to turn their attention to Kyle, whose weak seed had been a subject of mockery in the academy.
Hey Kyle, nice seed you got there.
One cadet sneered, her voice dripping with sarcasm.
Did you forget the rest of it back home?
Another cadet snickered.
Looks more like a dying ember than a seed. It must be hard trying to protect yourself with that empty shell.
Mocking someone's seed was considered extremely rude and could normally lead to a duel if a offended party was strong enough to back their challenge. However, Kyle's perceived weakness left him vulnerable to such jibes. His seed, a faint and mostly empty representation of his magical potential, made him an easy target. Kyle clenched his fist, trying to ignore the taunts. He knew better than to respond. His seed's feeble state would only make him a laughingstock if he tried to challenge his peers. Yet the mockery stung deeply, each GB a reminder of his own weakness. Johann, overhearing the exchange, paused and addressed the group, his voice cutting through the laughter.
Enough!
He barked.
Mockery has no place here. The expanse is just enough without you tearing each other down.
If any of you think you're strong enough to dispense with respect, you're welcome to test yourself against the horrors out there. The cadets fell silent, their mirth abruptly cut short by Johann's rebuke. Kyle still glanced at the instructor, feeling a mix of gratitude and shame. The protection offered by Johann's authority was small comfort, but it did little to alleviate the gnawing insecurity that had taken root within him. The cadets resumed their preparations, the mood more subdued, but the unspoken tension still simmering beneath the surface. As they headed to their assigned quarters, Kyle resolved to prove himself, not through bravado or confrontation, but by surviving and succeeding in the mission ahead. He would endure, adapt, and maybe, just maybe, he would find a way to overcome the limitations of his seed. The expanse loomed ever-present around them, a constant reminder of a peril that lay just beyond the reach of their steel barriers. The cadets knew that path ahead was fraught with danger, but they were determined to prove their worth. They would endure, adapt, and overcome. Their initiation into the mysteries of the Forbidden Expanse had begun, and none of them would emerge unchanged. The next morning dawned with a paradoxical chill. Despite the bright, warm sun that bathed the Forbidden Expanse in golden light, an inexplicable cold seeped into the cadets' bones, causing them to shiver uncontrollably. The landscape before them was a vision of paradise. Crystal clear skies, lush vegetation, and vibrant flowers that seemed to bask in an everlasting summer. This picturesque scene stood in stark contrast to the frigid air that plagued only the humans. Kyle awoke with a mix of anticipation and trepidation, the reality of their mission settling in now that the initial shock of arrival had worn off. As the cadets assembled, their breath visible in the unnaturally cold air, Johann's stern voice cut through the morning chill.
Remember your training. Stay alert and stay together. The Expanse is unforgiving to the careless.
He introduced the Nexalite scanner to the cadets, his hand steady despite the cold.
We follow where this leads us. Keep your eyes open for any anomalies or threats.
They spread out in a carefully orchestrated formation. Johann had the lead, his attention divided between the device's readings and the deceptively beautiful terrain ahead. Kyle found himself near the rear, his senses on high alert as he took in the unfamiliar environment around him. The contrast between the warm, inviting landscape and the bone-chilling cold that seemed to affect only them served as a subtle reminder of the Expanse's chaotic nature. As they moved forward, the cadets couldn't shake the feeling that they were out of place in this breathtaking paradise, like actors who had wandered into the wrong stage. Hours passed as the cadets ventured through the charted areas near their base. These regions, while still part of the Expanse, were considered relatively safe due to the regular patrols and previous expeditions. The landscape here was largely clear of immediate dangers, with known anomalies marked by warning flags, and most creatures having been driven away or eliminated during previous raids. Despite their vigilance and the advanced technology at their disposal, they found nothing but false leads and empty veins. It was common knowledge that Nexalite could materialize randomly anywhere in the Expanse, even right before one's eyes. But such occurrences were rare, especially in well-scouted areas. The quantity of Nexalite found in these safer zones was often negligible, barely enough to register on their scanners. As they pressed on, the cadets began to realize the daunting nature of their task. To meet their quota, they would likely need to venture beyond these familiar territories, into the true heart of the Expanse, where danger and opportunity grew in equal measure. As they ventured deeper into the discovered areas, the cadets began to relax, their vigilance slowly waning in the face of seemingly benign environment. Kyle noticed his peers chatting more freely, their eyes wandering from marked path. It was just a matter of time before someone made a mistake. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the air. Kyle whirled around to see Mira, one of his fellow cadets, being yanked upward by an invisible force. Her feet left the ground, and she began to spin wildly in the air, her limbs flailing helplessly.
Gravity anomaly!
Johan shouted, his voice cutting through the panic.
Everyone stay back!
Kyle's eyes darted to the spot where Mira had been standing. There, almost invisible against the lush grass, was a small, oil-black circle no larger than a dime. It shimmered faintly, the only sign of its deadly nature. Johan quickly took charge, barking orders to the stunned cadets.
Firm circle around the anomaly! We need to create a counterforce!
The cadets snapped into the action, positioning themselves as instructed. Under Johan's guidance, they began to channel their magic, creating a field to counteract the anomaly's pull. Kyle could feel the strain as they fought against the invisible force. After what felt like an eternity, but was likely only a few minutes, they managed to lower Mira safely to the ground. She collapsed immediately, retching and disoriented.
It's okay, you are safe now.
Johan assured her, his stern demeanor softening slightly. He turned to address the group, his face grave.
This is why we never let our guard down in the expanse. Mira got lucky. This anomaly is young and small. A fully formed gravity well would have torn her apart instantly.
The cadets exchanged uneasy glances, the reality of their situation sinking in anew. One of the cadets helped Mira to her feet, supporting her as she swayed unsteadily.
I didn't see it.
Mira mumbled,
One moment I was walking and the next.
her face pale and clammy. Johan nodded grimly.
That's how the expanse gets you. Always watch your step. Always stay alert. We'll mark the spot and report it when we return to base.
As they continued their mission, Kyle couldn't shake the image of Mira spinning helplessly in the air. It was a well-deserved reminder that, in the expanse, danger lurked in even the most innocuous places. The device in Johan's hands occasionally beeped and flashed, detecting trace amounts of Nexalite, but never in the quantities they need to meet their quota. Each false alarm wore their nerves, the constant state of alertness taking its toll. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the wooded terrain, Johan called for their return to base. The disappointment was palpable, hanging heavily in the air as they trudged back, their packs empty, their spirits low, and the weight of their unreasonable quota bearing down on them. The second day brought no better fortune. They pushed further into the expanse, venturing beyond the well-charted areas. The landscape shifted unpredictably around them, lush meadows giving way to crystalline forests with trees that chimed softly in non-existent winds. At times they found themselves crossing fields of softly undulating grass that seemed to whisper forgotten secrets, only to stumble upon pools of liquid that reflected impossible skies. Kyle felt the strain more than most, his weaker constitution leaving him breathless and trembling. The constant vigil is required to navigate this beautiful yet treacherous terrain taxed him heavily. Shimmering pathways that appeared solid would suddenly ripple beneath their feet, and distant landmarks seemed to move when no one was looking directly at them. Yet, Kyle refused to falter, pushing himself to keep pace with his peers, his eyes constantly scanning for the telltale signs of Nexalite or hidden dangers. The third day dawned with a sense of desperation. Johan led them to the very frontiers of the charred territory, an area that, according to their latest reconnaissance data, should have been relatively safe. However, as they entered this region, they were met with an unsettling phenomenon that none of them had anticipated. Strong gusts of wind whipped around them, but these were no ordinary breezes. Each gust felt like it was weathering away at their very essence, attempting to erode their mana and devastate their seeds. Surprisingly, Kyle found his weak seed to be an unexpected advantage. The lesser amounts of available mana were easier to control using willpower and breathing techniques he had practiced. While his comrades struggled against their onslaught, Kyle managed to minimize his losses, maintaining a semblance of stability.
This isn't right!
Johan shouted over the howling wind, his face etched with concern.
A new anomaly must have formed here! Everyone, stay alert and control your mana output!
Despite the warning, two cadets with particularly strong seeds but less refined control suddenly collapsed, overwhelmed by the mana-sapping winds. Their seeds, usually vibrant and powerful, flickered weakly as they lay unconscious. Simultaneously, the next light scanner in Johan's hand began to emit a high-pitched whine. The device, overloaded by the anomaly's power, abruptly shut down, leaving them without primary tool for their mission. Johan's expression darkened as he weighed their options. The loss of both the device and two of their comrades forced a difficult decision. As they began their retreat, carrying their unconscious peers, a faint trace of doubt lingered in the air. Was it the collapsed cadets, or the device failure that truly forced them to return? The line between caution and necessity blurred in the face of this Project Killer anomaly. They returned to base empty-handed once again, the weight of their failure hanging heavily over the group. As they turned to their comrades, the reality of their situation became clear. The expanse was not just challenging their physical limits, but their very magical essence, and it was changing faster than they could map it. The quarter seemed more impossible than ever, and the path forward increasingly uncertain. As they gathered that night, exhaustion etched into every face, as Johan's voice cut through somber atmosphere.
We cannot return home until we meet our quota,
he stated, his tone brooking no argument.
Tomorrow we push deeper. We find those deposits, or we don't come back at all.
The cadets exchanged worried glances, the weight of Johan's words settling heavily upon them. Kyle felt a chill run down his spine, sensing that tomorrow would bring challenges beyond anything they had faced so far. As he lay down to rest, his mind raced with both fear and a strange, inexplicable excitement for what the next day might bring.
Thank you for checking out the prologue of our upcoming immersive story series. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button. It really means a lot to us. We've put a tremendous amount of effort into this project, and we promise we're giving it our all. The story has just begun, and we can't wait to introduce you to the captivating yet harsh world of Xyphara, where endless conflicts over power, resources, and fame rage on. Join us on this journey with Kale Karizin as he strives to find his rightful place in this ruthless society. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new episodes, and click the bell icon to get updates as soon as they're uploaded. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so please leave your impressions and feedback in the comments section.